Yep. Inside, I want to kill myself. We are on an 0-7 run over the last 2 days. After tonight was just complete bullshit. So that's how I'm going to start off this show. Horrible Sunday, 1-5. I don't even know what to tell you about that. I just don't want to do this anymore. I have never seen anything like this, man. With the slump continuing, 2 straight losses, not a good day at all. 0-4. I just have not had a good season, man. What can this slump that I'm on? The slump continues. I've reached a new peak, actually. With I'm gonna burn my Bruins hat, man. I don't know what is going on with the Bruins. March 8th, is that what it is? I don't even know. It's March 9th, I think. Who even knows, man? I don't know what day it is anymore. I don't even know what day it is anymore, man. Back with you after the worst day that I could possibly have. Back with you, as I always am. Until I die, at least. 0-2 yesterday, and yesterday did not go well for me. 0-5. The worst month that I've ever had in my 18 years doing this. I don't know what to even tell you about this anymore. What the slump yesterday is. The slump just continues. The slump continues. Somebody fucking kill me, please. I don't even know what I should do at this point other than potentially end it all. What's up, everybody? It's Toad back with you. Better Off Dead. Saturday, November 8th. We're going to try to bounce back from a shit day yesterday, which, again, you can watch my rant about it last night on the college football edition. Thanks for hanging out, guys. People who hung out for that one. I got 5 college football plays today that I gave out on the show. I'll reiterate those at the end of this show, which hopefully will not take that long, but we do have a lot today as well. I'm going to give out 4 college basketball plays, 2 hockey plays, and 1 NBA game here. So we're going to have a lot on the board today. I believe 12 plays in total. I mean, this is what happens when you get into college basketball season, man, with all these other sports going on. Jeffrey, what's up, man? Thanks for hanging out. Charles, thanks for hanging out. Yeah, it's just one of those days. Yeah, it's all about losing NBA on bullshit. Yeah, I think I better quit having these betting slips because I'm gonna be leaving this earth. Yeah, I don't know. I gotta get into today, man. Yeah, well, I'm just hopefully I'm just continuing doing what I usually do, man. So hopefully this works out. I don't feel great about college basketball, even though I started 6-0 this season. I don't know, 1-2 yesterday doesn't feel great. It's starting to feel like how it felt like I couldn't get anything right in college basketball earlier this year. So, I don't know. We better get back on track. I better have a gauge on these games today. We're going to get into it right now with college basketball. Maybe I should not talk about as many games as I did yesterday, but I'm going to try to run through these, man. The first game up in college basketball is a big game with number 15 Alabama at number 5 St. John's. Although this is at Madison Square Garden, which is St. John's second home, basically. Like, it's not their actual home arena, but they do play a bunch of home games at Madison Square, so it's basically a home game for them, if you want to call it that. This is at noon on Fox Sports 1. Competing with college football, though, this one is going to be interesting, man. I still think Alabama kind of has that air behind them from the last couple of years of them being that really, really fast team under Nate Oates. They score a lot, and that's what recreational bettors tend to like, that more than what they see out of St. John's, which St. John's plays fast, but they are not a very good scoring team, that's been the case under that year with Rick Pitino so far, whatever. Is it 2 years now with him? I don't even remember. But I do think that might put the public a little bit too heavily on Alabama in this one. Although the money is coming in on Alabama here. 63% of the tickets on St. John's, 70% of the cash coming in on Alabama, and St. John's has dropped from a 6-point favorite to a 5.5-point favorite. So the money is actually coming in on Alabama. Oh, that actually kind of surprises me. There's nothing to really see about what these teams have done so far. They're both coming off wins over lesser teams, although St. John's played the better of the opponents that each of these teams played in Quinnipiac. I mean, they're not that bad of a team. So St. John's, actually, their win was more impressive than Alabama's in their first game. Alabama does have Purdue up next, but they're not going to overlook St. John's. But it is their first road game of the season. Alabama, for them it is. So I slightly do disagree with this. I kind of like St. John's in this one, but it's not a strong opinion. So just some feelings on that. Alcorn State and Minnesota I'm going to mention quickly because Alcorn, they just played a difficult game against South Alabama. South Alabama was an 18.5-point favorite, and Alcorn was actually winning this game late in the game. Alcorn had a lead with like 4 minutes left in the game, so they almost pulled off this huge upset, and now this is going to be a third straight road game for them. I think it's a bad spot for them, having to go up into Minnesota now, traveling all over the place after almost pulling off that upset. Sure, I mean, ideally, you'll want to show up for a game against Minnesota, but I don't think it looks good. Minnesota just had one win at home, so they're, I think, probably going to be more rested. I like Minnesota here. This one hasn't made my card, but I would lay it with Minnesota if I was going to do it. They're up to a 30-point favorite, though. In Minnesota, sometimes they do play fairly ugly, and you don't really want to lay like a massive number like that, but I do think that they will run away with that game. I lean towards Minnesota, but it's mostly a one-sided thing. It would be a fade of Alcorn State in that one. Yeah, I don't know if I have much else to say about any of these games. Penn State, I kind of lean towards them against New Haven. Penn State, in their home opener, they came close to losing to Fairfield, who is not a very good team in the MAAC, at least not recently, at the very least. Penn State was a 15.5-point favorite. I mean, Penn State, not the greatest Big Ten team right now, but still, they should have won this game more easily. They wound up winning by 8, but this was a close game. This is a tied game with 2 minutes left. So I think Penn State's going to come out of this probably a little bit angry and with more focus here. Going to New Haven, though. It is a little bit of a weird spot, though. It is their first road game. They're going to this New Haven venue, which is maybe a little bit weird because New Haven's new to Division I, so Penn State probably has never played there. So that would be my worry about laying a bunch of points with Penn State on the road there. I do think they're in a nice bounce-back spot. New Haven also did play yesterday, which I believe Penn State did not. So that's another thing to watch today. There are going to be a bunch of teams on back-to-backs as well. But you see some of the lines shifting quite a bit against some of those teams that are on back-to-backs kind of for that reason. Back-to-backs are actually kind of rare in college basketball. So typically I generally want to look towards fading those teams. So New Haven is in that spot, although they're not traveling. They're staying at home, still looking for their first win, and they're probably going to try to at least get up for it because it is Penn State. New Haven is so new that pregame doesn't even have them listed as a name here. The money looks like it's come in early on Penn State, up from 14.5 to 16. I still agree with laying the points in that one, but it's not a game that I'm particularly interested in. Drexel and St. Joe's is one of these early season Philadelphia matchups here. I think Drexel probably considers themselves to be one of the most little brothers, one of the littlest brothers in Philadelphia. So maybe a little bit more motivation on the Drexel side. The money is coming in on them. 75% of tickets, 95% of the cash on them, with St. Joe's dropping from 11.5 to 9.5, even though they are the better team. It is going to be one of those weird Philadelphia matchups. A lot of times you do see like the little brother pull off the upset in those early season Philadelphia matchups. So something to watch there. That's Jeffrey's area right there. The NCAA revoked 6. What did they do? They those players got expelled, or they're not allowed to play anymore. I'm assuming you're making those names up. Sedquavius and Duquavian. They're too busy studying. Yeah, that is not a concern, which is why in college basketball, I do not consider the return home spot to be a thing in college basketball. Because like with the professional sports, these guys do have families to get back to. With college, returning back to campus is not really that much of a distraction because these players, they're not really focused on studying and grades, okay? Yeah, they might be focused on the other distractions that come with being on campus, but those exist on every campus. So I think that's like less of a thing, depending on like what the individual situation is. Duke is coming off their big win over Texas to start the season. So I guess you could argue it's a little bit of a letdown spot here, but at home against Western Carolina, I don't know if you could possibly trust Western Carolina. Duke is a huge favorite. They've gone up from a 30-point favorite to a 35.5-point favorite. Duke still being ranked 6th in the country. So, I mean, just, yeah, I don't know. A game to mention, I guess, because Duke is playing, but not really something going on there. Fairfield and NJIT, these teams are both in really bad spots. Fairfield, of course, as I just mentioned, they almost pulled off the upset at Penn State. So, initially, I'm looking to fade Fairfield after that because now they have another road game. Their game up next is Seton Hall, which that's a Big East team. So for a MAAC team like this, you know you're going to get up for a Big East team. So this looks like a pretty big sandwich spot that Fairfield is in here. It looks like a spot where they might just not pay attention to NJIT, the New Jersey Institute of Technology, who used to be an independent, an unaffiliated team, and now they're in the American East. But NJIT, they went to Fordham, and they were 14.5-point underdogs and pulled off an upset at Fordham. So they're in kind of a bad spot, too. They're in a letdown spot coming off of that. So I don't love it as much, although it is their home opener. So I'm still going to lean to NJIT here. Both teams in bad spots, though, so spots where I would normally be looking to fade these teams. So I'm going to stay away. Fairfield is actually up from a 3.5-point favorite to a 6-point favorite. I don't really agree with that move. I would still be looking to fade Fairfield. I think the spot is still worse for them than it is for NJIT. Plus Fairfield, I mean, their game was against Penn State, right? They fell short of Penn State. That's a Big Ten team, so I think there is more weight in that than NJIT beating an A10 team, even though they were a big underdog there. So those are my thoughts on that. You went to Temple. Yeah, basketball players, yeah, they had proxies. You go to this class and take notes for me, bro. Yeah, it's kind of a crazy thing. By the way, I will point out there was another fairly major upset in college basketball yesterday, which was Delaware-Wilmington beat their big brother Delaware yesterday. So Delaware-Wilmington, not a Division I team. So might be looking to maybe play on Delaware in their next game, which I don't believe they're playing today. Although let me make sure of that. No, Delaware State is, but not Delaware. All right, let me run through. Hopefully I can run through these games quickly. Houston, number 2 in the country, is hosting Towson. I mean, there's not a whole lot to see here. Just Houston is an excellent team. They're a 27.5-point favorite, though. And we know Houston does tend to play really defensive, low-scoring games. So with Houston, somewhat difficult to lay huge point spreads with them, although the money is actually coming in that way. 80% of the tickets, 95% of the cash on them. I don't love laying huge points with Houston, although in a game that's more of a mismatch like this, their defense might hold the opposing offense so far down that Houston might still wind up doing it and winning by that margin. Don't want to make that a play. Northern Kentucky at number 18, Tennessee. There's not a whole lot to see here either. I'm just pointing out these ranked teams that are playing. Tennessee just beat their little brother, I believe, in the state. I believe Mercer is in Tennessee, or are they in Georgia? No, I think they're in Georgia. Why do I keep thinking they're in Tennessee? I think Mercer's in Georgia. Whatever. Tennessee had kind of a lackluster win against them, really, a 15-point win. So maybe Tennessee will actually show up with a little bit more intensity this time. Northern Kentucky just put up over 120 points against Cancel. Who is this team? I don't know. Cincinnati, Claremont. I don't know, man. Cincinnati, kind of a geographic, like, I don't want to say rivalry, but maybe Cincinnati teams are going to consider themselves to be a little bit of a geographic rival with these Northern Kentucky just because they're close geographically. But I don't know how better to put that. But Tennessee's up to a 27-point favorite in that one. Just calling out the teams that are ranked here, basically. Texas, you could argue maybe they're in a little bit of a hangover spot because they were pretty close with Duke into the second half. They're only losing by single digits for a while there. Big game for Texas to start the season. Now, they're coming off that game, and now they play not Louisiana Lafayette, just Lafayette from Pennsylvania. The Duke game, I believe that was that was a somewhat neutral site, but it was in Charlotte, so that was kind of a road game for Texas. So this is actually Texas's home opener, so I don't really want to go against Texas in their first game in Austin. So, I mean, I'm leaving it alone, obviously, but I would slightly lean towards taking the points with Lafayette. Texas is up to a 25-point favorite. It looks like it's getting higher, but they're public, 90% of the tickets, although that's pretty obvious that they would be. 94% of the cash on them as well, but I would probably be leaning towards fading them. One of my plays is going to come up right now because I'm just going in order here. Red Panda, she's back. Hell yeah. I've seen Red Panda several times because she's the halftime act at the TD Garden in Boston a lot. I saw her when I went to the NCAA tournament games a couple of years ago. She's done it for Celtics games that I've been to recently as well. She's good, man. People talk about how she screws up. I've seen her like 7 times and she's never screwed up when I've been there. I mean, she has her one thing, and that's what she does, but she does it really well. Riding a unicycle and balancing like bowls and plates on her head. You should go, man. Go to St. Joe's. Yes, she was jerking off Andre Drummond. I don't know. Is he like the Deshaun Watson of basketball? I don't even know. I don't know what's going on with Drummond. All right, here's a play for you guys. Colorado minus the points. We're getting into the 3 p.m. slate here. Now, this is Eastern Washington at Colorado. I'm going to lay it with Colorado here. Eastern Washington, they're coming off 2 pretty big games in a row on the road where they actually played UCLA really close to open the season as almost 30-point underdogs. Eastern Washington put up a pretty strong performance here, but they did shoot kind of out of their minds, 53.7% from the field. So they had kind of an outlier shooting percentage, which is why I thought that they were going to maybe be in line for a letdown against Loyola Marymount the game after that. And instead, they actually covered at least the closing number again, and they actually played pretty well again as 9.5-point underdogs at Loyola Marymount. So now they play these 2 games in California. Now they have a 3rd straight road game, and they have to go into elevation, playing a 3rd game as a big underdog here after putting up big efforts in back-to-back games. I think this is a bad spot for them, dude. Colorado's just sitting at 1-0, but their first game was very unimpressive with a win back on Monday against Montana State. And I think maybe Colorado just kind of getting their bearings a little bit. They were an 11.5-point favorite, but they only won by 6. This is a pretty bad game for Colorado, man. They were actually losing this game late in the game. So they were losing in the final few minutes of the game. So Colorado's coming off of an escape. And you know, man, I like to play on teams that almost lost as a big favorite. And I like to fade teams that performed really well as a big underdog. So that's what we got going on here. It lines up pretty well here, in my opinion. Colorado, they at least had a bad 3-point shooting game in the game, and both teams actually had good field goal percentages in this game. Colorado, a little bit bad from behind the arc. Not that they're necessarily known as a 3-point shooting team, but I think Colorado comes out with a better performance this time. Montana State has been one of the better Big Sky teams recently, at the very least. They're not like exactly the worst opponent there. We'll go with Colorado. I don't know what the line is done here. It looks like the money's somewhat agreeing with me now. Colorado, actually a 14.5-point favorite now, so we'll maybe change that if it's a better number right now. 67% of the tickets, 86% of the cash on Colorado. That's my first play in college basketball. Lay it with Colorado. All right. Let's see. We do have this Virginia matchup between William and Mary and Norfolk State. That game, I don't even know which one of those teams is considered to be the little brother because Norfolk State's in a really bad conference, but they dominate that conference, basically, the MEAC. William and Mary's in a somewhat better conference in the, in the Colonial, which, yeah, I think the Colonial, it's the Coastal. They had to change their name because you can't talk about colonialism. But they're one of like the lesser teams in that conference. It's an interesting matchup, though. If you're, a fan of Virginia basketball, I guess. Let me see. Norfolk State's gone from a pick'em to a 1.5-point favorite. It looks like some of the money's coming in at Norfolk State. Don't really have much of a reason to disagree with that, although I think the public's going to kind of remember that name just because they seem to get into the tournament almost every year just because they win the MEAC every year. So that's that. Vandy going to UCF. This is an interesting one, man. An SEC team against a Big Ten team. Vandy destroyed Lipscomb to open the season. Lipscomb has been pretty good in the, the A-Sun recently. They won the A-Sun again last year. Lipscomb has won it multiple times in the last few years. So I think people kind of remember that name at least a little bit. So Vandy putting up over 100 points and beating them by 40-something. Looks pretty good, but now Vandy has their first road game, and they have to go down to Central Florida, to Orlando, where maybe they are not really that familiar with playing in that environment there. So it looks like kind of a weird spot for Vandy. Maybe they're a little bit pumped up after that big win to open the season, although they're probably going to get up for a game against UCF. But UCF started the season with a pretty ugly game against Hofstra. UCF was an 8.5-point favorite when the game went off, and they came close to losing the game. I mean, they only won this game by 4 points. One of the issues that I would have with this, though, is that UCF actually shot better than Hofstra in the game, and they still almost lost. So that's maybe a little bit of a red flag. They shot 40% from the field. They did have a lot of turnovers. UCF did, so that's part of the reason why it was that close. So they could definitely clean that up. UCF, I mean, this is a close game, man. Like, this is a one-score game in the final couple of minutes of the game. So UCF came pretty close to losing as a favorite there. So that means I'm going to lean to UCF in this one. It's not one of my plays, but Vandy has actually gone up from a 6-point favorite to a 9-point favorite. So you're actually getting more value if you like UCF here. 67% of the tickets and 76% of the cash, on Central Florida, which I don't think there's a lot of public involvement here in these college basketball games early on, especially ones that don't involve like the really named teams. So I think most of this is actually professional money coming in and taking the points on UCF, even though the line did initially move up. Extra value, I don't know what's going on with the personnel, if there's like an injury that might have moved that line a little bit, but I would lean to taking the points at UCF. That one's not a play for me, but one that is a play for me, which I should call this the best bet segment already, man. Fuck it. Best bets. I don't know if this should be considered a best bet, but we're going to lay the points with Boise State minus 12.5, even though I know Boise, they're kind of an ugly, slow-paced team where you don't really want to lay a ton of points at home with them, or you don't want to lay a ton of points with them, I should say, generally, but I don't think this point spread is really that crazy high, and there's a reason why we're doing this, and the reason is that Boise is coming off that notorious upset a few days back against Hawaii Pacific. Boise had a really bad game, losing to a Division II team. Basically, Boise State has been the brunt of all these jokes since then, because that was the first major upset that happened, and that was one to a Division II team. I think there have been 3 Division II upsets, which I forget what the second one was, because Delaware-Wilmington was last night. There was one other one in the mix there. I'm going to have to remind myself what it was, but this is embarrassing, man. I mean, Boise, there wasn't even a line on this game. Obviously, Boise, the better team, should have won the game. Ken Pom has Boise somewhere around like the 50th best team in the country. Boise was bad in the game. They had a really bad shooting game. They also lost the turnover battle. Those are things that can be fixed. Like, the shooting percentages tend to like regress back to some sort of mean. So they were below average in this one. I think that's going to get better. Turnovers, you can fix that. You can clean it up. That just kind of shows like lack of focus. It was their first game of the season, but now after they lost that game like this, I think they're going to be focused, man. And they still got Andrew Meadow, our favorite guy with the goggles there. He'll be, I mean, I'm assuming he's playing here. So we got him. He could carry us to victory, man. And they're playing against Utah Valley, the Charlie Kirk school, notoriously. Utah Valley is coming off a win where they put up 116 points and they won their first game by 81 points. So, like, absolutely nobody is going to want to lay points with Boise State here right now. Nobody is. And yes, Utah Valley, they might actually be the best team in the WAC now that Grand Canyon moved out of that conference into the Mountain West. But come on, man. I mean, Utah Valley beating West Coast Baptist by 80 whatever points. West Coast Baptist, they're not a D1 team. I mean, they're not a good team, I assume. So you can't really read too much into this. West Coast Baptist shot 17.7% from the field in the game versus Utah Valley 56%. I mean, it was obviously just an absolute mismatch. Nothing to really take away from that. Now it's the first road game of the season for Utah Valley. Boise State staying at home where they got embarrassed, so Boise State's playing at home again. You know they're going to want to bounce back from that. We're going to lay the points with Boise here. The money is disagreeing with me, by the way. Boise down from 13 to 12. 75% of the tickets on Boise. 62% of the cash on Utah Valley. I don't get it. Money's coming in a little bit on the over, it looks like, so maybe it'll make it easier for Boise State to get over a number like this and cover as a favorite. I don't really understand this, man, because the stock could not be any lower on Boise right now, unless the sense is just that Boise was completely misranked to like start the season. But I'm not ready to say that after one game that looks like it was an outlier where you got to think that maybe it was the first game. Boise probably just thought it was going to be easy, whatever, and they got taken by surprise. I mean, that happens a lot in college basketball. I don't think we're that far off on Boise here as far as, like, I don't think Boise has, like, a bunch of years in a row where they're quite good, one of the better teams in this conference, and they just completely drop off when they have some of the same guys there. I don't think that's the case. Yes, Utah Valley is a bit of an under-the-radar team for sure, but still, I like Boise here. I think the spot is good for them. They're still the better team until we see otherwise. Boise. Charles, what's up, man? Charles, whatever your name is. the Charles River kid. Austin P at Air Force. Air Force coming off playing at Belmont. Kind of a difficult game there for them, and now they got Austin P. Austin P, the money looks like it is coming in on Austin P. They did just beat, I don't know, Britain. Who is this team? Oh, Bryan, Tennessee. I'm like, wait, there's a British team in college basketball now? No, I don't know. So, yeah, it looks like Austin P is getting the money here, though, flipping from a 2-point dog to a 2.5-point favorite, except that there are 67% of tickets on them, 77% of the cash on Air Force. So these market reads early in college basketball, they can really kind of mess with your head. So that's why I try to rely on, like, situational handicapping more. So I don't even know what I would do with that game. Providence and Virginia Tech is a pretty big game here. This game is actually not at Virginia Tech. This game is, for some reason, at Mohegan Sun. So we have some weird, like, neutral site games going on here today, too. So that's something to keep in mind. Make sure that you look at, like, where some of these games are, because there are just these random games that are sometimes not at these home venues. Why is this at Mohegan Sun? I don't know, but that actually is a closer location to Providence, because Mohegan Sun is in Connecticut. So it's like almost a semi-home for Providence here. So pretty strange to see Virginia Tech being the quote-unquote home team in this matchup. Both teams, I think, will get up for it. Providence actually didn't play well in their opener against Holy Cross, but you got to think Holy Cross got up for that game, because Holy Cross is, you know, they're one of my boys out in Worcester, Mass. is where Holy Cross is. So that's kind of a geographic like little brother situation where you got to think Holy Cross is going to get up for one of the bigger New England boys. It was a 23.5-point line on Providence there, and they only won the game by 10. It was never really a question if Providence was going to win the game, though. Like, the game was never really, it wasn't ever actually close to Holy Cross actually winning the game, but they did cover by quite a bit. So Providence coming off a bad performance. Maybe they're going to show up for this game and play better. Virginia Tech coming off a game over Charleston Southern, which I don't think there's really anything you can really take away from that. They blew them out, so maybe that makes Virginia Tech look a little bit better. I would probably lean to Providence to bounce back a bit in this one, and the money is agreeing with that, flipping them from a 1.5-point dog to a 2-point favorite, 71% of the tickets, 85% of the cash coming in on Providence. So the money is agreeing on Providence here. I agree with that as well. That's the way that I would look in that game. That's actually one of the more interesting games on the board today between two big conference teams. Yeah, Old Man River. Nate, what's up, man? Thanks for coming back. Thanks for hanging out. Modern Moments, what's up, man? Oregon, you're talking about college football. You like Iowa. I agree with taking the points with Iowa. I would not be shocked if Iowa was able to pull off that upset. Iowa plays good defense. I think they're going to be in that game. It's not one of my plays, but yeah, I do not disagree with Iowa, at least plus the points here. Now, unfortunately, we have like teams like New Orleans and Mercyhurst who both pulled off big upsets in their first games. They're playing D2 teams, so there aren't going to be lines on these games, so there's nothing you can really do about those games. Long Beach at Fresno. Hopefully I'm going to get through this quickly enough here, man. Fresno just lost at home to South Carolina upstate, USC upstate, which I think USC Trojans probably don't like South Carolina upstate calling themselves USC upstate. But yeah, this was a ridiculous upset, kind of, basically because people don't know who USC upstate is, although they've been like kind of a decent team in the Big South for a while. Fresno, not a very good Mountain West team, so this wasn't as huge of an upset as people really kind of made it out to be. It was definitely an upset, though. Fresno was a 9.5-point favorite in this one. They played pretty poorly. They're actually winning a lot of the game, and then they lost the game late. Fresno was terrible from the field in this game. 35.5% from the field, 23.3% from three. They shot really, really poorly, so you got to think there is some regression in store there. They just shot horribly. USC Upstate shot 50%. So there's got to be some regression here. Fresno, I do worry about the fact that they still won the turnover battle by double digits and still lost the game. That's not a great sign. And they actually lost the rebound battle. So that's not a great sign. There are a few kind of red flags there with Fresno, although I do think they're in a bounce-back spot after that. They're facing Long Beach State. Long Beach State got absolutely destroyed by San Diego State, although, I mean, that's not that surprising. San Diego State, obviously the better team of those two. Good history of San Diego State there. So both teams are actually kind of in bounce-back spots. I just kind of think Fresno kind of a little bit more embarrassed after what they did in their first game, and they're staying at home. So there is that at the very least, although Long Beach is just staying in the state of California. The money seems to be agreeing. Fresno's up from a 4-point favorite to a 7-point favorite now, with 7 being a key number in basketball because it's when teams stop intentionally fouling when they fall behind by 3 possessions. So if you like Fresno, the line's a little bit worse right now, but I do lean that way. 81% of the tickets and 78% of cash. It looks like you might be able to get 6 now. So it looks like once it hits 7, maybe some of the money started coming in on Long Beach and driving the line back down. But I would lay it with Fresno if I was going to play this, just because they were getting made fun of after that ugly loss. Long Beach, I mean, it was more expected that they were going to lose to us, San Diego State, obviously. 81% of the tickets, only 78% of the cash on Long Beach. It looks like the public is coming in and fading Fresno, at least to the extent that the public gets involved at these games. Our friends at IU Indianapolis, formerly IUPUI, with that new Shaka Smart-esque havoc full court press defense, are going to Butler here. This is going to be a weird one, man. I mean, IU Indianapolis, you know they're going to get up for this game because both these teams were in Indianapolis. I talked about that. It was part of the reason why I faded IU Indy in their last game, because I thought this was a big look. It was a big look ahead to spot to this game because they're the little brother in this city, one of the little brothers in Indianapolis. They're going to want to get up for this game. Butler, they've already played a home game so far, I believe, so it's not even their first home game. Maybe Butler takes IU Indy a little light, although you got to think that they've heard the hype at this point, so they're going to try to do something. Butler, they don't exactly play slow, although IUPUI plays ridiculously fast, but Butler's not one of those teams that tries to completely slow it down. So Butler might not be totally thrown off by that, although Butler might come out and actually try to slow it down like a little bit because that would throw off IU Indy a little bit, and Butler is still the better team here. What do we want to do in this game? I don't know, man. Butler's just sitting at a 21.5-point favorite. I would, I guess, slightly lean to IUPUI there, IU Indy, just because they are that little brother there in that city. It's an interesting one. FAU and Charleston is interesting. This game is in Lynchburg, Virginia, so there's kind of this tournament thing going on in Lynchburg right now, which is hosted by Liberty, I believe. Charleston is on a back-to-back because they played in this thing yesterday. They lost to Liberty yesterday. Again, this is Liberty's home floor, though, I'm pretty sure. Charleston wasn't great. They lost the game. They're on a back-to-back, so that's not necessarily great. Obviously, FAU is the more rested team coming into this one. But FAU, I mean, you could argue they're maybe in a letdown spot because they did beat Boston College, even though I know BC hasn't been good for quite a while now in college basketball, but they're still an ACC team. So I think FAU could consider that to be a pretty big win, and maybe they are going to be in a little bit of a letdown, although Charleston's been pretty good in their conference recently, so maybe FAU will still get up for this game. Charleston's on a back-to-back, and FAU isn't, so FAU does have a little bit of rest here, but there is kind of an advantage to Charleston, though, even though they did play yesterday, and that's the fact that Charleston just played in the same arena. So when teams are playing like a second straight game in that same arena, they are used to it now. They're used to the sight lines, whatever, so that can kind of throw off like a team like maybe FAU. They haven't played there yet this year. They're coming in a little bit cold, have to adapt to the arena again, although I think this tournament does happen every year, though, and I think FAU is, like, always in it, though, so maybe that's a little bit less of a factor because I think FAU does play in it every year. The money's coming in pretty strong on FAU, up from 2.5 to 6, so if you like them, definitely lost some value there on them. 83% of tickets, 99% of the cash coming in on them. Some of it has to do with, I think, Charleston playing yesterday, though, and maybe it's a little bit of an overreaction to Charleston not looking good. yesterday. So I have, this game, it's very, very difficult to read. I mean, I don't love the game one way or the other, really. I'm not going to really necessarily disagree with the line movement on FAU because they are the more rested team, but obviously there are definitely some hesitations there. Another big game tonight, our other ranked matchup of the day, is number 14 Arkansas with John Calipari going up against Tom Izzo, 22 Michigan State, 7 p.m. on Fox. Michigan State, they play a lot of big boys at the beginning of the season. Yeah, I think that's the only other ranked matchup today. It'll be a good game. This game is in East Lansing, so it's at Michigan State. Arkansas beat Southern to open the season. Nothing to really see there. Michigan State looked a little bit more lackluster in their opener at home, only beating Colgate by 11 at home. So that's not a very impressive win. But now Arkansas is traveling. First road game of the season. Michigan State's already played at home, and they're staying at home. So I think that is an advantage to Michigan State. And they looked bad in that opener. And, they're used to playing these big teams early on. Like, that's what Tom Izzo does. He usually gets, one of the most difficult early season schedules scheduled for his team. Like, you can see they're going to play Kentucky, North Carolina, Duke. I mean, that's the way that he wants it, man. So, I lean to Michigan State in this one. The money is agreeing with that. They flipped from a 1-point dog to a 2.5-point favorite here. And that's another thing. Like, you see Arkansas being the higher-ranked team. This is something I talk about in college football and basketball. When you have the lesser-ranked team actually favored, even though they're not quite getting home court here, that's obviously something to take into account because the public is going to perceive value the other way. Oh, the higher-ranked team is getting points here. Let me take that. But I think that that's not the way to look. I think you want to do the opposite because the odds makers are telling you that basically the rankings are not quite accurate. 57% of the tickets, 75% of the cash on Michigan State. So the money is agreeing with Michigan State, and I do not disagree with it. All right, next up, next play for me. Hopefully we're going to get these plays today, man, because we started off nice, 6-0. We're now 7-2 in college basketball. We're going to take Queens plus 18.5 against Villanova. I know this is at Villanova, and Queens, they've already played they haven't played a true road game yet, so I do worry about that. It's their first true road game. But they did already play almost a road game in South Carolina against Winthrop, which Winthrop, I think, is close to where that location was. So that alleviates that concern to some extent. But also, Queens, this is one of their biggest games on their entire schedule. They do have Virginia and Arkansas and Auburn later on, but this is their big, early season game against Villanova. So I think they're going to show up for it. It's a Big East team, and I like the fact that after their opening loss in that first game on the college basketball season, Queens actually looked worse than they actually were. They shouldn't have lost that game against Winthrop. Queens had the game in hand, and they fell apart at the end, and then I think intentionally fouled at the end. They played better than the final score makes it look, and then they had a nice bounce back against a D2 team. They got a win, I believe, at home, so that was good. So I think that'll at least get that monkey off their back early. Okay, now we're not a winless team. Let's go. We have some momentum now. So I like that for Queens, but I also think this is a big letdown for Villanova. And Villanova's changing time zones here. Villanova, they had that big spotlight game against BYU in Las Vegas, whenever that was, a few days ago. And Villanova was close, man. They almost took out number 8 ranked BYU. Villanova had the lead late in the game, and then they fell short. I think they're going to be in a bit of a letdown spot here. I know this is their home opener, and most of the time I will not want to play against a team in their home opener or on a team that's playing their first true road game, but in this situation, I think it's actually warranted. And you're asking Villanova to lay a ton of points, and we know Villanova, they've been kind of a mediocre team in the Big East recently, and they play very, very slow. So Villanova, asking them to cover a large spread as a favorite is not really something you want to do with a team that plays a style like Villanova does, where, again, they're defense-oriented. They play very slow-paced, so it makes those points worth more. And you can see that the odds makers are expecting that to be the case here because I think this is one of the lowest totals on the board. Actually, I'm wrong. It's at 151.5. What am I saying? I thought it was in the 130s. So my mistake. Yeah, so that's not great, but it looks like the line has ticked down a little bit on the 18, down to 18 with a little bit less juice. But I like it. I still think the spot sets up for it. Everything else I said is still in play here, I would say. Villanova, they still play a slower game. I think the fact that the total is high, I think is kind of indicative of just Queens wanting to play a bit of a faster style. And yes, I know that Villanova is going to try to slow it down, and usually the team that's the better team at home will be able to control the pace and slow it down. But I'm okay with that because, again, if Villanova does successfully slow the game down, you're asking them to lay a ton of points. So that doesn't really play into them covering by a huge margin. So I like it. We'll go with Queens plus the points. I haven't seen what KenPom has on these games, by the way, that I'm giving out, but I think KenPom actually has all three of those that I've given out, winning by a little bit less, but whatever. And then to finish it off, we have one more game here. We're going to go with Tarleton State on the money line is what this is. I mean, I saw you could, only a couple of books had this out right now. You could lay like 1.5, but as I pointed out, when a team's a 1.5, or 2-point favorite, it actually is more advantageous to lay a money line price. And I went to see what the money line was, and you could just lay a pick 'em. So why wouldn't you do that? Like when you're having to lay like almost -110 for the -1.5 anyway. If another book has the money line at -110, and then all you have to do is win the game, yeah, I mean, it obviously makes sense to do that instead. That's what we're going to do. This is against Texas A&M CC, and I think Tarleton State probably considers themselves to be a little brother here in the state of Texas versus A&M CC, because A&M CC, I mean, they're under the Texas A&M banner. They're in kind of a better conference in the Southland here, whereas Tarleton State is in the WAC, I believe. A&M CC, I mean, they're coming off a pretty good game, actually, where they played pretty well against SMU 2 days ago. That was a big step-up game for A&M CC, and they lost by 11, but this game was actually somewhat closer. If you look at what happened in this game, A&M CC, they were tied in this game with 4 minutes left, dude, or 4.5 minutes left, or less than 4.5 minutes left. It was a tied game, so Texas A&M CC they were close to pulling off an upset on the road at SMU as a 23.5-point underdog. So they almost pulled off that upset. And you know me, I like to go against teams when that happens. Now they're having to go down to basically the border in whatever this is, Stephenville, Texas, or wherever this is. It's right near the Mexico border. They got to go down and play Tarleton State. And up next on Tuesday, they're gonna face Kansas and then Oklahoma State. You got to think A&M CC might be looking ahead to those games too. So this game is actually sandwiched in between bigger opponents. Second straight road game. It's going to be difficult for them, man. So Tarleton State, even though they're 0-2, you're just asking them to win the game outright, and the line is basically saying that they're not that much worse than A&M CC. They lost to SMU by 20 in their opener, so the public, if they look at this, they're going to say, well, wait a minute, A&M CC almost beat SMU, who crushed Tarleton, both games at SMU, so why would I want to take Tarleton? We're just asking me to pick the winner. It looks too easy to play A&M Corpus Christi here, but again, I wouldn't do that. A&M CC does have a win, but of course that was against a non-Division I team in Trinity, Texas or whatever. Tarleton has played 2 really difficult games against SMU and LSU. They have an extra day off here. They weren't expected to win either of those games. Now this is their home opener, and it's a winnable game. I think they're going to show up for it. Tarleton, holy shit, they're already up from 2 to 3.5 now. So my bad on that one. So the money's definitely agreeing with it. I saw it at a pick-em price, a money line price of this. I saw it at this money line price like a half an hour ago, dude. So this is crazy. I would still do it. I think you'd probably find about a 2 out there still. I would still lean to laying the points with Tarleton here. Yeah, that's the way that it is. I think the spot sets up really well for them. So maybe at that larger price, I would put like a little bit less money on it, but I still like that side. Weber State is a little brother in the state of Utah, so just something to keep in mind there. Maybe Weber State, maybe worth a look plus the points there. Utah coming off a bigger game, basically a win over San Jose State, although Utah was probably a bigger favorite than that, and they did not really play that well in that game, so something to keep in mind there. I'm going to argue a little bit against Holy Cross because they played really close against Providence. Well, not really close, but as I mentioned, they at least came within 10 of Providence in their first game, and now they have to go out into high elevation to play BYU. I don't think it's a great spot for Holy Cross, even though you could argue BYU could be in a little bit of a letdown after that spotlight win over Villanova, but they were expected to win by more than that, so they actually didn't cover, and they're staying at home, so I would actually probably lay it with BYU if I was going to play it, but they're already all the way up from 34.5 to 39 here, so obviously I don't love that. So that's going to be a stay away, and then the other game, late night, 10:30 p.m., last game of the board is actually a good game. Oklahoma at Gonzaga. It seems like these two teams seem to play early season every year now, but I don't know if that's going to be that helpful to Oklahoma. Like, do they play at Gonzaga every year, though? Or do they alternate venues? I don't know, because Oklahoma having to go up to Spokane, Washington seems like a little bit of a trip, which is not that great. Oklahoma blew out St. Francis, PA, which whatever. I mean, you know, I went against St. Francis, PA with TCU and got an easy win with that one. So that's not a very impressive win, although they did blow them out. First true road game for Oklahoma here. A little bit difficult, I think, for them to do this. Gonzaga is ranked at 21 in the country, and I think they're underranked yet again. If anything, they always seem to be underranked. Gonzaga crushed Texas Southern in their first game, and I think they're just staying at home. Yeah, they got Creighton up next, but Gonzaga's not going to overlook Oklahoma. I mean, they're an SEC team, you know. They'll get up for this game. The money's coming in on Oklahoma, though. I don't really agree with it. Gonzaga down from 12 to 11.5, 53% of tickets on them, 70% of the cash coming in Oklahoma. I would probably lean towards laying it with Gonzaga here. I mean, I think Gonzaga, I actually think they're being undervalued, as it seems like they always are now, just for whatever reason, because they're in a lesser conference or whatever. I think still a little bit of a difficult locational spot and travel spot for Oklahoma, having to go play a not a West Coast game, but a Pacific time zone game late, which can mess with their biological clock. So, oh yeah, we're skipping it. Let's go to NHL. I'm going to have two plays in the NHL. We got some interesting games here. I mean, Pittsburgh is at New Jersey, but if you look at these teams' records, they both have really good records, but New Jersey's been excellent at home. They're 6-0 and 0 at home. They've won all their home games. So they're very, very good at home. And the odds makers are telling you something with the fact that even though both these teams have good records, New Jersey's a minus 175 favorite, although they dropped from minus 200. But the odds makers are telling you New Jersey is the better team, lining them as more than just a home ice favorite here. 55% of tickets, 66% of the cash coming into New Jersey. The public might come in and maybe perceive value on Pittsburgh, but I would disagree with that. I would look towards New Jersey in this one. Pittsburgh's coming up beating Washington on Thursday, too. That's a big win as well. Yes, this is a big game going to play New Jersey, but they're going to have to step up their level of game 2 games in a row. Sometimes I don't love that. New Jersey did just beat Montreal, so that was a big win for them, too. So I could kind of see an argument that both teams are somewhat in letdown spots. That was a return home spot for New Jersey, though, and they still got the job done, which that might have been a loss for me on the show. I don't remember if it was or if it wasn't, but that wasn't a great spot. New Jersey still took care of business. I think they still showed up focused for a game against Montreal. Now they're in the second game back home, which usually is a better spot, but it's better when the team doesn't do well when they first come back home, and in this case they did. So you could argue that it's a letdown spot for both teams, but I would lean to New Jersey in that one. Ottawa at Philadelphia. Ottawa coming off that overtime loss to my Bruins on Thursday. They played 3 overtime games in a row, but they're probably going to want to salvage the last game of this road trip because they've lost both games on the road trip so far. I don't know if Olmark is going to play in this game or not, but they had a lot of rest before the Boston game, so I think he probably will play again here. I think they're going to try to get this win and, again, salvage the road trip, even though they did beat Philadelphia earlier in the season at home. Philadelphia, probably not as good as their record looks at 8-5-1. Philadelphia coming off that win over Nashville, which I thought was a bad spot, and Nashville just sucks. I mean, what can you do? They blow. Never want to play on them again, basically. Philadelphia is technically returning home from a road trip here, although they only went on the road for 2 games, so it's not really a huge road trip return spot. They weren't really away for that long. But I actually think the spot sets up a little bit better for Ottawa. They're up for minus 113 and minus 118 on the money line. So the money is somewhat agreeing with me on this. 65% of the cash on them, 67% of tickets on Philly. So the money coming in on Philly, again, I think the public's kind of looking at this and seeing that Philadelphia has the better record right now. And yes, they are fairly good at home. So there is that as well. But the odds makers are actually telling you Ottawa's the better team. So looks, again, like the odds makers are telling you something that's different than what the records say. So I would tend to lean towards what the odds makers say. Dallas at Nashville. Dallas coming into this game off of kind of an ugly loss to Anaheim, although Anaheim's been playing really well this season. So maybe you have to adapt and maybe start boosting Anaheim in your power ratings because they've beaten so many good teams in a row now. Kind of crazy. Dallas, they were kind of in a letdown spot because they had just beaten Edmonton in a shootout the game before that, and they played 3 straight overtime games. So it wasn't the greatest spot for them. So I actually think Dallas probably does come in and bounce back off of that loss. And they did have Ottinger back in net after 2 games without him in net, so he's going to probably play again here. They do play Seattle tomorrow, but I don't think that's really that much of a cause for a look ahead. Although Nashville is bad, so it is maybe a team that you would tend to overlook, but teams should be overlooking them, and it seems like Nashville still can't win against anybody. Nashville's lost 3 games in a row. They're staying at home. They should get up for a game against Dallas. It's not really a bad spot for Nashville here, but I can't do it. The money is saying Dallas to some extent, even though they're down from -165 to -151. 62% of the tickets, 76% of the cash on Dallas. So money is kind of saying Dallas here. I'm not going to disagree with it, though. Fuck Nashville for what they've done to me. What have they done to my boy? You're driving a Tesla. Well, hopefully it doesn't catch on fire, dude. Hopefully we catch on fire today. Joel Quenneville, where's he at now? I don't even know which team has him as a coach now. Is he Dallas's coach now? I have no idea, dude. I just remember him being with Chicago, and then there were those allegations that he was like abusing players or whatever. My Boston Bruins are in an original 6 matchup at Toronto. I think both teams are going to show up for this. The Bruins have been playing well recently. They've been a streaky team, man. They're on a 5-game win streak right now. Just got a nice revenge win over Ottawa. 2nd straight overtime game. They played 3 overtime games in the last 4 games and beat Carolina in the non-overtime game. So the Bruins, you could argue that maybe they're going to start to get a little bit tired, although they've had days off between all those games. Swayman will be back in net for this one, most likely, because Korpisalo played their last game and they still won against Ottawa. Bruins on a nice roll right now, so they might actually be taking momentum on the road with them for this game. A lot of times when a team's rolling like this, they go out on the road for a road game. They do carry that momentum with them. They're going to be focused for the game. I mean, I think Toronto will as well. Toronto's staying at home. They've had a bunch of days off, although I'm not so sure that the days off will help Toronto because you don't want days off when you're winning like they are. They won 3 games in a row. And then they had to stop, and that could be a momentum stopper, man. You don't really want that to be the case. I don't think they're going to overlook Boston, even though they do have Carolina tomorrow. Bruins have been hot, and again, it's an original 6 game. Bruins seem to always beat Toronto in the playoffs recently, too, so Toronto will get up for this. But that rest that they've had could actually stop their momentum a little bit, and Toronto's recent wins have actually been less impressive. They beat Calgary, Buffalo in overtime, Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, and Utah. I know Utah, Pittsburgh, they have good records right now. Utah probably is actually fairly solid this year. Pittsburgh, I don't really think they are. So Toronto's wins, actually all their wins this season haven't really been that impressive. Nashville, I mean, that's not impressive. Beating the Rangers, I mean, the Rangers are good on the road at least, so Toronto beat them in Toronto, but even so, I mean, Toronto, actually, their resume is not very impressive so far this year, even though I don't think that they're a bad team, but still, I think the money coming in on Boston here, I think I would agree with that. Toronto's down from -190 to -180 here. 52% of the tickets on Toronto, but 65% of the cash coming in on the Bruins. So the money seems to be coming in on the Bruins. I think they're maybe a little bit too big of an underdog here. Odds makers not really respecting the Bruins, and while yeah, I don't think the Bruins are as good as the recent win streak makes them look, I think maybe they're not as bad as this line is really indicating either. So that's what I'll say about that. Utah at Montreal. Should I just do my plays in order here? Maybe because I've started doing that. Maybe I will. Yeah, the Mighty Ducks. Emilio Estevez is coming out, man, and Jussie Smollett on their team. Which, if you don't get that reference, Jussie Smollett is in Mighty Ducks. He's one of the, I think they're like the 2 brothers on the team or whatever. You can look it up. It is him in the Mighty Ducks. All right, next up, I'll give out one of my plays. We're going to play Utah on the money line, wherever I have it there. They're around -102 on the money line. The money's coming in on them. They flipped from a +105 dog to now a -112 favorite. 83% of the cash on Utah, on the Mammoth, against Montreal. Montreal, 60% of the tickets on Montreal. So the public wants Montreal. The one thing that you do have to worry about is Montreal is pretty good at home, 4-1-1. Utah's been all right on the road, though. They're above 500 on the road, so that's not that bad. But I think the spot is actually pretty good for Utah here. Utah, the odds makers are actually telling you something. They're actually respecting Utah, by the way, making them as a road favorite against Montreal, which looks kind of crazy. Like Utah, I mean, they're formerly Arizona. Like, are they really this good? Well, the odds makers are telling you that they're better than Montreal at the very least, which is kind of insane. Montreal, though, I mean, Montreal's been a bad team for a while now. And last year they showed signs of improvement, but I think what the odds makers are telling you that they're still kind of in line with what they were last year. Utah has had multiple days off. They haven't played since Wednesday. And I think they're going to want to try to get back to above 500 on the road trip, as they're 1-1 on the road trip right now. They did just lose to Toronto in their last game. Utah's going to have Vejmelka back in net here, and he's the better of their two goalies, even though I don't even think Vanacek is really that bad either, but the record is better with Vejmelka in net. I think they're about 500 with Vanacek. So Vejmelka, the two Vs, Vejmelka will be back in net for this one. You're looking at a pretty rested Utah team. They're only traveling from Toronto to Montreal, which is not a big travel leg, especially with all those days off. It's Montreal. I think Utah's going to be focused on this. Montreal, yeah, their record looks good, 9-3-2. I think they're good, maybe not as good as their record looks, but they last played on Thursday, so they have fewer days off. They went to New Jersey and took New Jersey into overtime. Big game for them, and now they're actually having to return home off of that. So I actually think the spot's not very good for Montreal. They have less rest, more travel, played a bunch of extra periods recently, and that was a big game against New Jersey, too. So I think it could hang them over a little bit here. And I'm pretty sure it's going to be Montembeault in net again. I mean, we can see what it says here. It's not confirmed. I think it's almost definitely Vejmelka for Utah. But for Montreal, I do want this to be Montembeault, though, here. We don't know if it's going to be because Dobes has played a couple of games in a row usually when he goes out there. But they're kind of alternating between the two. But Montreal's been worse with Montembeault in net, dude. Like, they lost again with Montembeault in net last time out. What's their record with Montembeault in net? I think they're like 3-3. I mean, not including the overtime. I mean, that's listing the overtime losses as just losses. But I think they're like, I don't know, whatever they are. They're like 500 with Montembeault in net. But with Montembeault in net, he's played 7 times, and they've allowed 4 or more goals in 5 of those games, even though some of them might have been empty nets or whatever. But that's not good that they're allowing a lot of goals in his games. And since one of the early games against Chicago where they won 3-2 with him in net, he's allowed at least, or the team at least, has allowed 3 or more goals in every game since then. So they've been worse with Montembeault in net, even though he looked like he was this up-and-coming goalie last year. So I'd prefer it to be him in net, although I still like the spot anyway. But I think it's better if he is in net for Montreal, even though last time I tried to fade him was that was the game where they only allowed 3 goals. So that's unfortunate. I thought Ottawa should have gotten us the win there. But we're going to go with it. We're going to go with Utah in that one. Yep, Utah got good as soon as they left Arizona. Dude, Arizona, I mean, it's a warm weather place. I mean, they don't play hockey in Arizona. What the fuck? So now you get to go to Utah. You get to practice in cold weather in Utah, man. Emilio Estevez. What is he? He's the brother of Charlie Sheen. Is that right? Half-brother, maybe, something like that. Emilio Estevez is not his real name. Neither of them use their real... Or no, actually, Emilio Estevez might actually be his real name. Charlie Sheen, that's not his real name. He changed his name because he has such sheen. Charlie Sheen probably has slept with the most women out of anybody on earth, by the way. Genghis Sheen. Montreal's good. Yeah, with Marty St. Louis. I'm not disagreeing that they're good, but I don't like the spot here. The odds makers are telling you something with that line, so whatever. The Kachucks, Matthews, whatever. Knees, Thompson, they're from Arizona. Don't care. Arizona was not, they were obviously were not drawing fans there. They were not a good team when they were in Arizona. They should never have left Winnipeg, really, because they were the original Winnipeg Jets. There's obviously a reason why they had to leave Arizona, so I'm going to stick by what I said. Arizona is also a fucking sweltering hot desert. Never want to go there. It's literal hell. All right. Correct. Yeah, that's me. Toad Con. Let's try to get the rest of these done. Washington at Tampa Bay is actually a pretty good matchup between two good teams. Washington doing a little bit worse than they did last year, but I think they might be a little bit underrated right now. And they're coming off somewhat of an ugly loss to Pittsburgh the other day, so I think they're going to be kind of in a bounce back mode. They've been ugly recently, losing 5 of their last 6 games, so I think they're going to at least try to show up here in a bit of bounce back mode here. Tampa Bay, probably better than their record looks as well. I think both teams are, although Tampa's been the hotter of the two teams recently. Tampa's won 6 of their last 7, but they're returning home from a road trip, and they beat Vegas to finish the road trip. So you know what I'm about to say. I don't like that spot, even though it was only a 3-game road trip, so it wasn't that long. But you return home from a road trip, it's going to be a bit of a distracted spot. However, I do think that they might still focus because it is Washington who beat them at Washington earlier this year in October. And we know Washington won. They had the best record in the conference last year, I should say. So I don't know if Tampa's necessarily going to be totally distracted here. And they can play this game and then worry about getting stuff done at home after that because they're staying at home and they have a bunch of days off after this. So they might still be focused, but they're returning home from a road trip still that took them into elevation and then to Vegas. They could be in a bit of a distracted spot still, and it could be a little bit of a letdown spot because beating Vegas is big. Vegas is pretty good. So the spot is definitely worse, in my opinion, for Tampa. So I'm going to lean to Washington in this game. This almost made a play for me, man. Should I add it? I'm tempted to do it. Tampa Bay's up from -145 to -147. 60% of tickets, 79% of the cash now on Washington. So the money is agreeing with me now on this one on the Washington side. Should I do it? Are we going to do it? Yeah. Yeah, let's do it. Fuck it. We'll add a hockey play on the fly here. And hopefully I can get this show done and get out of here because we still have to talk about NBA. Fuck, dude. Man, all right, let me see. What am I looking at? Capitals. Let's see what we can get on the line here. Plus 125 is an underdog. You know I like taking these small-ish hockey underdogs, too, that I think have a decent chance to win the game outright. I think you're getting decent value. Team like Washington, underdog, let's do it. Plus 125, Washington. We're going to add it as a play on the fly there. All right. New York is my final game here, and we're going to go with the Islanders on the money line here, which the money is also agreeing with this one. This is the final hockey play. Rangers down from -162 to -153 on the money line. 83% of the tickets on the Rangers, but 76% of the cash coming in on the Islanders side. So the money is agreeing with me on this one and taking the Islanders, even though the odds makers are telling you the Rangers are the better team. And while I don't disagree, you know what I'm about to say with the Rangers, man. We're just going to continue to do this until something happens. The Rangers have not won at home this entire season. They're 0-5-1 at home. And in 6 home games, they've been shut out 4 times. They've been horrific at home. And I mean, I'm not saying they're going to get shut out here. I mean, I highly doubt that. But they've been unbelievably bad at home. I think we've won at least once fading them at home, which we did the other day with Carolina. And we've won on the Rangers multiple times on the road, including in their last games. You remember, I was on the Rangers and on the Islanders in their last 2 games. And what happened? Well, the Rangers looked good in their last game. They went to Detroit and they beat them, of course, because it was a road game for the Rangers. So, of course, they won that game. That was a big win for the Rangers, man. That was yesterday. Both teams played yesterday, but the Islanders have basically no travel here, whereas New York, the Rangers, the other New York, had to go to Detroit. So this is a bad travel spot for them. And yes, I know Quick was in net for them yesterday, but he's actually been pretty good. They've won their last 3 games with Quick in net, so he's very experienced. He's still good. So, yes, they're going back to Shesterkin, who is their better goalie, but still you're looking at the Rangers sucking ass at home on a back-to-back with travel. Don't love it, even though, yes, the Islanders are also on a back-to-back, but the travel is much more limited for them. The Rangers could be in a little bit of a letdown spot here again because that was a big win. Detroit playing really well this season. Big win. Detroit did outshoot them. Although the Rangers did outface off and out-hit them. So the Rangers did still basically outplay them in the game. I think maybe some of the shots were desperation for Detroit in that game. So there was that aspect of it. But, yeah, I mean, there wasn't an empty net goal in the game either. Although this was a 2-1 game going into the third period. So maybe it wasn't quite as lopsided as maybe the final score looks. So right now the Rangers, the public's going to probably be back on them a little bit. The public just tends to never really like the Islanders, the little brother. But The Islanders are always a little bit more motivated against the Rangers because the Islanders always play second fiddle in New York. And now the Islanders actually I believe they play in Queens now. So they actually technically play in New York City rather than playing in Nassau County, like just outside of Queens, because I think they changed venues. The Islanders have lost 2 in a row, but yesterday's loss was ridiculous, man. Yes, they're on a back-to-back, but they're only traveling from home in Queens. They're only traveling from Queens to Manhattan, man. All they're doing is getting on the fucking subway. Of course, they're not literally doing that, but you know what I mean. And, of course, they're not going to do that because they might get mugged and murdered and stabbed on the New York subway, or even shot, even though, but I thought it was a gun-free city. Minnesota just crushed the Islanders yesterday, 5-2. It was not great for my play, obviously, but this game, the score was a little bit misleading. The Islanders did have more shots, although it was kind of because they were losing the game, but they actually out-face off Minnesota. Again, Minnesota, the final score made them look better than they actually were. The game was very close statistically, so I think if you look at yesterday's results, you could be a little bit misled about what happened there. Islanders, underdog, money line, let's do it. Not 20 plays, but I think it's like 13. My Instagram is going to be ridiculous today. I've already got 5 of them out, though. Yeah, Mom Donnie. Correct. The subway is definitely not safe for anybody. I've been to New York repeatedly, and I've only been on the subway, I think maybe even once. Like, I never used the subway in New York City. I use the subway in Boston, like, every time. Don't want to do it in New York, man. I don't trust it. All right, Buffalo at Carolina. There's nothing to really discuss here, in my opinion. The money's coming back in on Buffalo. Carolina's a huge favorite. I don't know what else you could really say about it. Carolina is coming off a couple of decent wins against the Rangers and Minnesota, so I guess you could argue maybe they won't totally focus against a lesser team like Buffalo. They do have to play Toronto tomorrow on the road. Carolina does, so I guess I am in agreement with the money coming in on Buffalo, but I'm not going to do it. Seattle at St. Louis. What I will say about this is it looks pretty strange to see St. Louis as a favorite here of minus 155, down from minus 166, but 85% of the cash on St. Louis and 60% of the tickets on Seattle. So the public's on Seattle thinking there's value getting them as an underdog, because, why would St. Louis, who's a far below 500 team right now, be a favorite like this against Seattle, who's well above 500? Well, the odds makers are telling you St. Louis is actually the better team. They're telling you that these records are misleading right now. However, Seattle's in a pretty big bounce back spot because they did just lose horrifically to San Jose. So I do think Seattle's going to show up pissed here and bounce back. So I don't necessarily love the idea of fading them for that reason. St. Louis is returning home from a road trip, although they only went to Washington and Buffalo, so it was a small road trip there. Washington. I never pronounced the last syllable. Washington. Whatever. I slur it. I cram it in together, man. Yeah, St. Louis, technically they're returning home from a road trip, but I don't think it's going to be one of those major distraction spots on the return home because they were only away for 2 games. So I don't really disagree with the St. Louis side here. I do think that the odds makers are telling you something, but Seattle could be in bounce back mode there. Colorado at Edmonton, perhaps the biggest game on the NHL slate. Colorado still has only lost once in regulation. They just returned home for a game against Tampa Bay. They've had multiple days off, and now they're traveling up to Edmonton. They're going to get up for this game, and both teams are going to be up for this. Colorado going to Edmonton. Big game for both teams. Colorado maybe carrying a bit of momentum out on the road with them, although they do have a little bit of rest, but I don't think that's necessarily a problem in this case because they didn't really have a win streak going on. Edmonton has the same amount of rest. They're returning home from a road trip, so that makes the spot a little bit less good for them, I think, although it was only a 2-game road trip that started on Monday. They've had a bunch of days off since then, although sometimes the extra days off kind of let you settle in at home and add to the distraction. But when they're playing Colorado, I don't think they're going to be distracted. Colorado has the best record in hockey. Edmonton has actually not been that good this year, although Colorado's going to be up for it because Edmonton has won the conference the last 2 years. Edmonton, they'll still be up for it as well, I think. They've lost their last couple of games, but that was a tough loss at Dallas. Dallas got their playoff revenge in that game against Edmonton. So I don't know, man. Maybe Edmonton not quite as good this year. I'm going to lean to Colorado in this one slightly. I do think it is somewhat the better spot. The team's starting the road trip, basically, against the team coming back from one. The money is agreeing, and they've actually flipped Colorado from plus 101 to minus 125. So you have Colorado actually in the market. The market is saying Colorado is enough. They're better enough over Edmonton that they're a favorite on the road at Edmonton, which is wild. 80, not Minnesota wild, it's actual wild. 87% of the cash on Colorado, 78% of tickets on Edmonton. The public, they just love Edmonton, dude. They love the fact that Edmonton scores. They're coming in taking Edmonton as the dog here, but the money's saying Colorado. I'll agree with it. You are correct about that, Nate. Edmonton did start slow last year, too, so I do expect them to turn it on to some extent, but we'll see. Yes, Toad riding the T. T for Toad. All right. Columbus at Vancouver. I'm really going to talk about every one of these games. Vancouver in a return home spot. Bad spot for them. They got basically wiped out by Chicago 5-2. Bad loss for Vancouver. It was a bad spot for them. But if you look at the stats in this game, Vancouver outshot Chicago by almost 20. And they out-hit them and out-face-off them. So Vancouver actually outstatted Chicago in every stat. Granted, yes, they were losing the game, so they had to start putting up desperation shots, down 4-0, but that only happened midway through the third period, so they didn't have that much time to be really putting up that many desperation shots. So Vancouver actually outplayed Chicago in the game, and it was a bit misleading. And now that they had a bad game in that return home spot, I actually think the spot is better for them now to bounce back. Having their second game back home, they got done when they had to get done at home, whatever. Columbus is kind of in a bounce-back spot, too, though, because they just took an ugly loss against Calgary, on Wednesday. Calgary, not a good team. Columbus still looking for the first win on the road trip. So I expect focus, actually, from both teams here. The money's coming in on Vancouver, and I do agree with it. Up from minus 115 to minus 116. 52% of tickets on Columbus. Public likes the way Columbus has been playing recently. They kind of want to fade Vancouver, even though they're a big name. They're below 500 right now. Vancouver's not a great team, but I do think the spot is still fairly positive for them at home. 93% of the cash on them. I'll agree with Vancouver, but I do think both teams are in focus spots. Anaheim at Vegas. Anaheim at 9-3-1. Vegas only at 7-3-3. But as you can see, oddsmakers still not totally buying Anaheim, as Vegas is a minus 200 favorite. Although the professional money seems to be buying Anaheim to some extent, because 57% of tickets on Vegas, only 52% of the cash on them. So the money is kind of fading Vegas here. Anaheim's really, really hot on a 5-game win streak, and they just keep beating good teams, man. Florida twice, Detroit, New Jersey, Dallas. I mean, at some point, you got to think there's some letdown spot in here somewhere, but I don't know when it's going to come at this point. That's what she said, by the way. Anaheim just playing really well right now, and I'm not sure that Anaheim is as bad as we thought they were, because they're doing this against good teams. So what can I say? Vegas is another good team, though, so I'm not really necessarily wanting to fade Vegas here. Vegas staying at home after a pretty ugly loss at home to Tampa Bay, so I think the spot is better for Vegas here. I mean, Anaheim just beat Dallas on the road, so I don't really agree with the money here. I'd probably slightly lean towards looking maybe to take Vegas to win this game in regulation or something like that. Money seems to be a little bit disagreeing with it, though. But I think the spot's a little bit better for Vegas. Then you got Florida at San Jose. Florida just beat L.A. On the road. Decent win. Maybe they overlook San Jose to some extent here. They do have Vegas up next. So Florida looks a little bit sandwichy in this spot. And then Washington up when they return home. So they might overlook San Jose a little bit here. San Jose, they're in a letdown spot too, though. I mean, they just beat Seattle 6-1 on the road, came back home and beat Winnipeg yesterday. So they're in playing a back-to-back in a third game in 4 days off 2 big wins. Yeah, they'll get up playing the returning champs, Florida, but both teams in bad spots here. I think you might actually have to lean to Florida on this one, man. With both teams in bad spots, you tend to want to actually go with the better team. Or, I mean, I don't want to say you tend to, but I think that's the better way to go. Florida up from minus 230 to minus 245 on the money line. They're public, 68% of the tickets, but 72% of the cash on them. So the money's somewhat agreeing with Florida. If you want to do that again, I would look to maybe get the price way down and take Florida to win in regulation or something like that. All right, NBA, and then I'll do the final market read on my college football picks, and then we'll be done. Bunch of NBA games today. Do I really want to talk about every one of these games? Not really. Dallas at Washington. I mean, Washington, they're just a team I don't want anything to do with right now. Although the money's coming in on Washington for what it's worth. 52% of the tickets, 72% of the cash on them, with Dallas only a 4.5-point road favorite. Washington, I mean, they got absolutely destroyed last night. Yeah, they're on a back-to-back, but I think Dallas is too. A lot of these teams played yesterday. Yeah, Dallas played a little bit better at Memphis, still took a loss, but Dallas is traveling. Washington is staying at home and were more embarrassed last night. So I think the spot is better for Washington. So I would lean to taking the points with Washington again. Am I going to do it? Absolutely not. Toronto's on a back-to-back after kind of a bullshit win, man. I'm not going to lie. Atlanta was winning almost that entire game against Toronto. And then Atlanta had a bad fourth quarter and lost the game. Very pissed about that. Atlanta had a terrible shooting game. I think that was an outlier. I don't think my handicap was wrong in that game. It looked like Atlanta was going to win the game and then fell completely apart. They out-rebounded Toronto, still lost the game, shot horribly. Again, like an outlier field goal percentage from Atlanta there. So I'm pissed about that. But that does mean that Toronto's win was bullshit yesterday, and they're on a back-to-back. So not really the greatest spot for them here. But they're on a 4-game win streak, so they do have momentum, I guess. They're probably still going to be focused to play Philadelphia, but Philadelphia hasn't played since Wednesday, although it was a big game against Cleveland. Yes, they're returning home from a road trip, but it was only a 3-game road trip where the furthest they went was Chicago, so it's not exactly the worst road trip return spot. So I actually think Philadelphia is the right side in this one, but the money's disagreeing with it. But they're the more rested team here, man, so that's the way I would lean. I think Toronto maybe looked better than they were yesterday. 80% of the tickets, 60% of the cash on the Sixers, sitting at a 5.5-point favorite, up from 5. I would lean to Philly, though, like I said. I don't agree with the market percentages in that one. Atlanta, after letting me down yesterday, they're on the back-to-back. They got the Lakers coming in now. They did have a couple of days off prior to that, though, and they had a bad game yesterday. Atlanta's without Trae Young, though, so they're a little bit thin roster-wise right now. You got to think they're going to show up with the Lakers coming in, though. Lakers off to a really good start to the season, obviously. Lakers are starting a road trip with momentum, though, but multiple days off. I mean, sometimes you have multiple days off. It can hurt that momentum a little bit. But I do think they're going to show up focused because their next game is against Charlotte, so it's not a look ahead. But the Lakers are coming off a big win over San Antonio, man. I mean, that turned into a big game, and the Lakers had to make a comeback in the game. They got the big win against a good defensive San Antonio team. So maybe a little bit of a letdown spot for the Lakers, you could argue. They're definitely the more rested team, though. You could definitely argue the spot's a little bit better for the Lakers. They're up from a 2-point favorite to a 3.5-point favorite, but the money is kind of coming in against them at that bigger number. 91% of the tickets, only 79% of the cash on the Lakers. So the money seems to be kind of indicating on taking the points of the Hawks. I mean, I don't really disagree with it, even though they're on the back-to-back. I would slightly do it. I think LA could be in a little bit of a letdown spot, but do I want to do it? Absolutely not. No way. Chicago Bulls at Cleveland Cavs here. The odds makers are telling you something by lining the Cavs as an 8-point favorite because Chicago actually has the better record at 6-2. I think Cleveland's 6-3. Although the public is still slightly coming in on the Cavs at 58% of the tickets, 91% of the cash on the Bulls. So the actual money seems to be on the Bulls. Cavs down from 8.5 to 8, which surprises me because I thought that after Chicago's hot start to the season that the public would actually think that this line is too high and look to take the points, but it looks like they're not doing that. The Bulls haven't been that good on the road. They're 1-2 on the road. Cleveland pretty good at home at 3-1, so you don't really want to fade Cleveland at home. The Bulls, what kind of spot are they in? I think they played last night, right? Yeah, they did. They played at Milwaukee last night, so they're having to travel from Milwaukee to Cleveland. Yeah, they lost last night, but it is still a back-to-back with travel. Not the easiest spot for Chicago. For Cleveland, they also played yesterday, though, and they went to Washington. They had an easy win. So they probably actually put in less effort than Chicago did. It was a blowout, so they might have started resting players at the end of that game, too. Yes, they're returning home with travel. They're playing a third game in 4 days. To me, I think the spot is actually a little bit better for Cleveland, though. Like, I would actually lean towards laying it with Cleveland in that game, although the money's disagreeing with it. But what do I know? Portland at Miami. Portland, I looked at this and I said, you got to fade Portland here because they're in a huge letdown spot because they just played, They beat Denver, then they played the Lakers close, and then they beat Oklahoma City and delivered Oklahoma City their first loss of the season. All those games at home, big-time win for Portland. Now they're going out on the road, and yes, sometimes you are focused when you start a road trip. You want to be focused, but I was like, that's got to be a letdown spot for them coming off that game against OKC, right? And Portland, I mean, they've actually been pretty good on the road, even though I tend to think they're better at home. 2-1 at home, although Miami's 2-1 on the road for Portland, but Miami is undefeated at home at 3-0. So yeah, I mean, looking like maybe you want to fade Portland here because it looks like it is kind of a letdown spot that Portland is in here. But for Miami, they played yesterday. Yeah, they beat Charlotte, but Miami's kind of in a bad spot. They're playing a third game in 4 days. They're playing a back-to-back. They're actually playing a dreaded 5th game in 7 days because they played on Sunday, Monday, had Tuesday off, and then they played Wednesday and Friday. So, yeah, I mean, 5th game in 7 days is pretty difficult, man. So the spot is really, really, it's like a jammed schedule for Miami here. They do play Cleveland on Monday. So I could actually see Miami not doing well here. And again, that was one of my losses last night was Charlotte. Charlotte was in that game later in the game. And again, Charlotte had a terrible shooting game in the game. I think the win was bullshit for Miami. Charlotte dominated the rebounds in the game. Miami was without Bam Adebayo. I mean, Miami couldn't really do anything on the interior in that game, man. So I am really, really pissed about that one. I thought it was the best of the situational angles for my NBA last night. And Charlotte statistically, at least rebound-wise, they probably should have won the game, but they just shot so badly in the game. It was just this outlier, kind of like Atlanta was. Pissed me off. I think I should have won both of those 2 plays. Not the Washington one, but I think the other 2 games I should have won. So either way, though, I do think Miami, it made Miami look better than they actually were in the game. I think the spot is actually worse for Miami, believe it or not. And I don't want to play the Portland. I don't want to play the Portland side, though, in what I think is still a letdown spot. But the odds makers are also telling you something, lining Portland as a road favorite against the Heat. Like, at what point would you ever expect the Blazers to be a road favorite against the Heat? But it's without Adebayo still for the Heat, but still. Odds makers are telling you the Blazers are actually the better team, even maybe with Adebayo in for the Heat. Like, it looks like the Blazers would still actually be lined as the better team. That's insane. But 64% of tickets, 97% of the cash on the Blazers, who moved up from a 1.5-point favorite to a 3.5-point favorite. I won't disagree with it, but I don't love it at all because there's no way I'm going to play a team after they upset the Thunder. So I'm going to skip Pelicans San Antonio because that is my one play. Indiana is going to Denver. Indiana's off that ugly loss that I got right on the show with Brooklyn. One of my wins. Very, very embarrassing loss to lose to Brooklyn. I think it was a bad spot because Indiana had played Golden State and Milwaukee. 2 tough games games prior to that. And then they did have this game against Denver coming up next. So going out on the road might be a reset. Maybe you'll see a focused Indiana team going to Denver, although Denver is always tough to play in their home arena. Denver is kind of in a letdown spot, and they played yesterday, though. They beat Miami on Wednesday, and then they beat Golden State yesterday. So I would lean to Indiana in this game, man. It's not a great spot for Denver here, really. I can't quite get there with this, but if I added another play, it would be this one. The money looks like it's somewhat coming in on the side of the Nuggets now, though the Nuggets are down from 12.5 to 11.5, but 72% of the tickets, 84% of the cash on the Nuggets. Money kind of coming in on the Nuggets side now. I don't agree with it, though. I would take the points with Indiana if I was going to play it. It's just a little bit dicey, but again, Indiana has more rest. They're in a bounce-back spot. I think Denver's in a bit of a letdown spot. If they had a bigger game up next, I might actually be convinced to play Indiana plus the points here. Denver has Sacramento up next, which isn't that big of a game. They did just beat Sacramento at home, although it was a close game. I think that was the game that I gave out Denver and lost that game. Denver actually had that game in hand more than it looked on the scoreboard. Denver almost could have covered that number. So I'm going to stay away, but it's close. And then we have an ESPN night game, Phoenix at the Clippers, which this is a zigzag spot where Phoenix did just beat the Clippers at home on Thursday, and now they're going to LA. So usually in a spot like that, I'm going to look for the team that lost the first game to make adjustments and play better, because when you're the team that won, you don't have any adjustments to make. Like Phoenix, you won that game. What do? You don't have anything to change because everything worked for you. By the way, that was Phoenix's first game with Jalen Green, who they got in the Kevin Durant trade. So you could have argued that would have been like a weird chemistry shift game there. Maybe they wouldn't play well right away with Green, but they did play well, beating LA. But again, now they have to go to LA, and LA is going to be the team that has the adjustments to make now. So that would have me start looking towards the Clippers in this game tonight. Now, for the Clippers, speaking of Durant, he didn't even play in that game. So in what should have been that like trade game, you know what I mean? The trade matchup, which actually might have been why Phoenix got up for that game, because I think, well, no, it wasn't the trade matchup. What am I saying? The trade matchup was Phoenix at Houston. What am I saying? Yeah, what am I saying? I'm thinking of James Harden, not Kevin Durant. I'm an idiot, man. I've had no sleep. I'm an idiot. Never mind. Scratch that. But yes, Green was that was his first game with the Suns. For the Clippers, James Harden did not play. Harden, not Durant. I get them confused because they both, I think they both kind of kill team chemistry. Harden really does. At least Durant has won some championships with Golden State, I think. All right. But anyway, Harden and Kawhi Leonard were both out for that game against the Suns there with the Clippers. Now, coming into this game, I believe Kawhi Leonard is still hurt, so he's out. But Harden was out for personal reasons, whatever that was. So I think James Harden is coming back in this game. So you do have to worry about that being a little bit of a chemistry shift again for the Clippers. Even though they're used to him being out in and out of the lineup, so I don't know how big of a deal that really will be. I would still kind of lean to the Clippers here, even though you have to lay 5 now, which is indicating that Harden is going to be back, most likely, because I believe the Suns were, what were they, like a 1-point favorite, I think, in the game against the Clippers at home, something like that. So the line has shifted quite a bit, but part of that is because Harden's coming back, so you got to take that into account. Otherwise, it would have shifted too much, but with Harden back, I don't think it really did. Clippers down to a 5-point favorite from 5.5. Those 75% of the tickets on the Clippers, 90% of the cash on Phoenix. So the money is coming in on Phoenix here. Oh man, I gotta slow down, man. I feel like I'm shouting into the mic. I don't know, dude. I just talk loud. I don't know. I gotta somehow, because I'm killing my voice. I gotta somehow tone it down. I don't know how to do it, man. Talking for hours like this, I gotta find some way of doing it, man. I just don't know how to do it. Anyway. I would probably lean to the Clippers in the zigzag spot, but it's not going to be a play for me. The final play of the day is the New Orleans Pelicans plus the points against the San Antonio Spurs. The money seems to agree with this one as the Spurs are down from 12 to 11. 90% of the tickets, only 62% of the cash on the Spurs. Public all over the Spurs. But again, I think New Orleans is being a little bit undervalued right now because they're 2-6. They've had probably the most difficult schedule in basketball to start the season, and they did have a little bit of let up, and they got some momentum now, winning 2 games against not good teams really in Charlotte and then on the road against Dallas, but still they've got some momentum now after those 2 wins, and they're only traveling within Texas here, down from Dallas to San Antonio, so not a bad travel spot necessarily. They've had multiple days off here, so the spot doesn't set up terribly for New Orleans here. I think they're going to show up and play well because, by the way, it's a revenge spot as well because they did lose at home to San Antonio earlier in the season. I think they will remember that. So I think it's a little bit of an extra motivation. And, I mean, you don't want to overrate that aspect of it, but still, when a team lost at home to a team and now they're playing them again on the road, they do want to deliver return the favor there. And it might also cost San Antonio. The bigger aspect of it is San Antonio might overlook New Orleans because they did go in and beat them on the road there. And by the way, I think Zion Williamson played in that game as well, where he's out right now, I believe. So, yeah, so I think because San Antonio beat New Orleans with Williamson, now New Orleans is without Williamson. I think San Antonio is going to completely overlook New Orleans here. And San Antonio is in a bad spot, man. I mean, look at what they've done recently. They just went out to L.A. and they almost beat the Lakers. Probably should have had that win in LA against the Lakers. They fell just short. They came back home in what could have been a bad spot for them. And what did they do? They beat the Houston Rockets, who are, I believe, probably the best team out of the 3 Texas teams right now. I think San Antonio was an underdog in that game. Yeah, 4.5-point underdog, and they still won the game. Huge win for San Antonio there. So coming off 2 big games, now on a back-to-back, by the way, because that was yesterday. So it's 3 games in 4 days, with some travel between Wednesday and Friday across time zones. Now they play this bad New Orleans team, and up next on Monday, they got to play the Bulls, who are off to a good start. And then they got Golden State twice after that. I think they're going to look right past New Orleans here, man. So I'm going to take New Orleans plus the points here. That is it for the plays today, man. We Pelican. Yeah, I like that. Let's do it. And then my plays one more time in college football. If you missed the show last night, go see my analysis on last night's show. We got Texas Tech minus the points, Boston College plus the points. We're going red bandana. You can see that reference. With these videos are out on Instagram too, by the way, so you can see my analysis there too. UConn plus the points, Missouri plus the points. Hopefully you can still get 7 on Missouri. It's somewhere between 7 and 6.5. 7 is not going to show up for us on the Auburn game. I think it's down to 6, 6.5, but Auburn plus the points as well. Those are the college football plays. If we want to do a final market read on those just to see what's going on with those, which I kind of like to do. Let's see what Texas Tech is doing. Money is agreeing. Texas Tech's all the way up to 13.5, man. So hopefully you got it at the better number. Although, as long as it's below 14, you're not really losing that much value. 13 is a slightly key number, though, so it's a little bit less value. I still like Texas Tech, though, so do what you will with that. 54% of tickets, 67% of the cash on them now. Auburn, one of my plays, looks like they're still getting the money with Vandy, very public, 74% of the tickets. Only 60% of the cash on them, so both of those look good. Oh, hey, 3 of my plays all in a row here, man. The Texas A&M one, it looks like the money is kind of agreeing with Missouri. Now, it looks like you could still get 7 on this. 63% of the tickets, 58% of the cash now on A&M, so that one's looking good as well. As far as Connecticut is concerned, that's not looking good. For whatever reason. I don't know what's going on. They look like a public underdog here. Even though the line dropped to 7.5, 74% of the tickets, 69% of the cash on UConn. I don't like seeing that market read there, but maybe it'll change because I don't buy that at all. You'll see my analysis on that. I don't like it. I like Connecticut in that one, and that is one of my plays. And then Boston College was the other one. SMU, I mean, they're public. They still have a slight cash percentage on them for now. 68% of the tickets, 70% of the cash. But I don't know. I mean, I know the game's coming up in less than an hour now, but it's only a slight cash disparity. I still like the spot, and we're fading the public in that one still. So that's what we're doing. That's the final market read on those games. Again, I apologize for Texas Tech. That line just getting totally out of control. I would still probably lay it at under 2 touchdowns, though, to be honest. I think they're going to blow out BYU in that game. So that's it for those games, man. Thanks for hanging out, man. You couldn't stay up last night. I'm surprised that I did. I'm always dead, especially after eating that Baja Blast pie. And I still have some of it left. I ate like a big chunk of it the first day, ate a little bit more of it, which I shouldn't have done because I'm feeling real bad. Get everything locked in soon, man. Tic-tac-toed. Yeah, that's going to do it for now, man. Yeah, thanks for hanging out, guys. Why did it not shift back to me being full screen? I don't know. Very strange there. Anyway, Learn to Toad on Instagram, Learn to Toad on Twitter, of course. My scruff is back, so I look better again. I don't look like a fat baby anymore. I like it. Obviously, like and subscribe here, man, and leave me good comments. Let's boost the channel, boost the audio as well on Spotify and Apple. Give me a good review over there. Listen over there. That helps. Everything helps. And then we got Uke stuff. Covered in Uke on YouTube is my Uke channel. Patreon.com/LearnToToad. You get a Uke Spotify feed, and you get prioritized requests. That's going to do it. Thanks, guys, for hanging out. I got to get this video up and get my college football picks in line because I'm in a couple of money pools still and whatever. So let's get it done. Let's go. Thanks for hanging out again, guys. I'll be back tonight, as usual, with the NFL show. And hopefully I'm not going to die because I got to put, how many Instagram videos do I still have to put up? Like 8? Oh, boy. At least they're all short, and so am I. And I think none of those games start until 4 p.m. Eastern, so I have time to do that. That's going to do it. Peace for now, guys. Oh, and it looks like, I forgot to mention, it looks like College Game Day, because I have ESPN on it. College Game Day might actually be BYU, Texas Tech. Is that right? So I actually think that's an extra motivating factor for the home team there. So they get to host College Game Day. Texas Tech doesn't usually get to do that. So if that's the case, maybe a little bit of an extra factor for Texas Tech there. A little bit extra. All right, guys. Peace.